pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and one nation. Greet your neighbor.
Neighbor.
Well.
Thank you.
Today's invocation will be given by Lord Lee.
Let us pray. Dear God, we offer this humble prayer for this holiday season. We pray for joy in our hearts, love to forgive, and peace upon the earth. We pray for your blessings on all people. May there be bread for the hungry, love for the unlovable, healing for the sick, protection for our children and youth, and for all people. We thank you for the bountiful meal we have just received by generous and loving hands. And we thank you for the fellowship and service of Wooster Rotary. Abide with us, our families, our friends, our coworkers through this season and into the new year. Amen.
Welcome to all of you. I hope you had a great week and I hope you're all ready for Christmas. We're running out of days and it's supposed to be really cold near the end of the week. So you might want to finish that Christmas shopping up in the next couple of days. Well, anyway, this is this week's mystery item from my museum. Now, in case you can't read it, it says Army credit card on there. Does anybody know what that is? What? That's a siphon hose. Every vehicle has one. And of course, you never know when the Army's going to provide you more gasoline. So the first unattended vehicle you come upon, there's your credit card. That's where you get gas. So nobody, only the veterans know about siphon hoses. I'm sure the rest of you have never had to do that. And now Secretary Lynn and the Secretary's report.
Thank you, President Greg. We'll start with guest introductions from the podium. Doug Hershey.
I found these two bums hanging around outside and they seemed cold and wanted to come in for a warm meal, claiming to be friends of the speaker, Dave McConnell and Jim Hartman.
Start with next, Phil Mariola.
My guest today is Tate Emerson, Executive Director of the Killbuck Watershed Land Trust.
Morning, Starkey.
My guest today is Rob Wells, the Executive Director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
And Josie Weaver-Krantz.
Hello, my guest is John Drumm, and he's an attorney who focuses on EHS and business compliance. He currently lives in East Liverpool, but he is looking to relocate to Worcester.
Thank you, John. And Phil Mariola has an announcement.
Lynn. Several years ago, I don't even remember who was president at the time, but our board of directors did a survey of the membership. And they asked, what do you like about Wooster Rotary? Don't you like? And some interesting comments came out of that. And one that's kind of stuck with me. One of the members said, I show up on Monday, I sit there, I get involved in some stimulating conversation. Things are going really well, and they ring the daggone bell, and it just stops. You know, I was exaggerating, but I understood what he meant. So our president, Greg, remembers that also, and he's wanting to do something about it. So I just would like you to save the date today. This is a save the date announcement. On March 2nd at Greystone Event Center. We're gonna have a Wooster Rotary wine tasting. And we'll talk more about it after the holiday break, but I'd like you to just put it in your calendars for March the 2nd. And we're gonna borrow an idea from Main Street Worcester. When you show up, you'll be given a stemless wine glass with the Wooster Rotary logo on it, one for your guest, and we'll have 3 tables with wines on them where you can just go around and taste the ones you want to taste, and they will be staffed by Rotarians. So we're going to try to make it fun and make it mingling and social, and to thank President Greg for the idea. March the 2nd.
Yeah, we're hoping we can get a nice group of people out. The first one Bill did over to Country Club a number of years ago. I think it was during Robbie Ross's presidency. We had a record crowd. And so he's changing the format up this year a little bit. And we just hope that we can get a number of you to come and bring a guest. At this time, I would like Lee King and Joy Smith to come forward to present checks to our partners in the flag program.
Thank you, President Greg. This year went really fast for everybody, I'm sure. So we're here to kind of give you a season recap of the flag project this year and check presentations. So I appreciate those community groups that were able to join us here today. Just a quick overview. We concluded our 14th year in the program this year. We had 15 community group partners this year, which doesn't include the Wooster Rotary Club, and so we're down 2 from last year. So you look at the bar graph here. We started in 2009 with 795 subscriptions. Went up quite considerably here over the years, and we kind of flattened out a little bit, but this year we had 1,941 subscriptions across the community in Worcester and Smithville. You can see our payments to our community groups since 2009. Right now we hit over $200,000 of giving funds back to the community groups, so we appreciate their efforts. This year we had $17,926 going to those community groups. So what I'd like to do is when your community group gets announced, just come up here. Joy will hand you your check. Please stay up here. We'll recognize after everybody's been announced, and then we'll get a picture. Terry will take a picture. Worcester New Lions, Doug Carpenter. Come up. All right, thank you. They get a $691.20 check this year. That's their 7th year in the program, and they've accumulated over $9,000. Worcester Lacrosse Club, Tracy. This is their 10th year in the program. They receive a $4,437.60 payment this year, and they've gone over $30,000 in their 10 years. So we appreciate their efforts. Oh Huddle, anybody from Oh Huddle? Kelly Kuzma, $799.20 payment. This is their 3rd year in the program with $2,253. Boy Scout Troop 61. Jason Carroll. They had an $828 payment, 13th year in the program, a little over $9,000 earnings. Wayne County Public Library. Jennifer Schatzer, their payment this year, $180. Their 7th year in the program with cumulative earnings of $1,764. John Pooster, representing Triway Band, $1,449.60 this year. This is their 6th year in the program with 7,320 cumulative earnings. Boy Scout Troop 66, I think they were here earlier, right? $1,269 payment, 14th year in the program. They've been with us since day one, $25,573. Boy Scout Troop 79, $465.60 was their payment, 13th year, $8,783. They were here earlier to pick up their check, couldn't stay. Boy Scout Troop 63. Very festive. Thank you.
You get the microphone, explain what's going on today.
Thank you for wearing that. Appreciate that.
Today at school, and I don't have a school.
You look great. Jason Burgett, thank you. $1,065.60. This is their 7th year in the program with a little over $10,000 earnings. And those that couldn't be with us, Madisonburg Lions Club, $621.60, 12 years in the program, a little over $6,000 earning. Boy Scout Troop 65, $1,718.40, 10th year in the program. They've reached over the $15,000 mark in earnings. Life Care Hospice, so Chris and Tom Chia, they've been placing flags for the past 12 years for different organizations. They represented Life Care Hospice this year. They received a check for $775.40. Equine Critters 4-H, $770.40, 11th year, $7,946. And Boy Scout Troop 4064, thank you for being here. $1,687.20. 3rd year in the program, $4,881. Thank you. And Susan Marlar couldn't make it, but Meaden and Moore, they've decided as a company to put flags out. They are donating to the Salvation Army this year. $1,166.40. This is their 4th year that they've done this with earnings over $3,000. And just to note, if anybody would like to do a route as a company, or if you know any companies that would like to do that, we would take that opportunity as well. So let's give them a round of applause. It's almost like Santa as well, so that's great. Real quick here, I just want to make a special thank you to Peggy Schmitz, who was the Rotary route leader this year. I want to recognize these volunteers that put flags out there this year. Some husband and wife teams, Scott and Amy Allen, Wayne Baird, Chris and David Boone, Tony Biggio and Ron Holtman did the Smithville route, Mike and Joanna Davidson, James Fox, Dave Gallipoon, Chuck Sprosty, Bobby Douglas, Ken Schaefer, Melissa Mariola, Phil Mariola, and Doug Webb, Joyce Schmitz, Chris and Evan Wortman, Tim and Lisa Swift, Courtney Yoder, and Peggy and Mike Schmitz. So thank you very much for your role this year helping place flags. And then also Don Noble for his route and the city flags that he places up on the bridges. Thank you for that. Matt Yost handles the route down south. He puts up 19 flags, and then other Rotarians also that have flag routes or put flags up, Tom Hilt and Letitia Wiles. And just with those members that put flags out, we're able to get $5,260 back to our club for that. So thank you. And then also my flag committee members, Mike Steiner, Brent Rice, Tom Rumbaugh, Cheryl Boyer, Sarah Baker, Marty Starkey, Joy Schmitz, Andy Jones, Terry Snoddy, Becky Foster, Peggy Schmitz, and Susan Marlar. This is a huge program for our club, raises a lot of funds for us, and I couldn't do without these committee members, so thank you very much for that. Just a couple pictures, you know, if we got flag maintenance, the honorary flight that we provide, and then also the flag down at the fairgrounds has been a huge benefit to the community. So thank you for the volunteers and the community groups, and we're looking forward to 23. If you would like to participate in the flag project, you can talk to Joy and myself. We'd love to have you. If you aren't participating in this, this is something that kind of replaced the auction. We would love to have 100% participation in this program. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lee, Joy. We couldn't do it without you two and all the partners that are here. We really appreciate it. It is obviously our largest fundraiser. And, it replaced the auction. And if we didn't have the flags, we would have had to find something else. So it's very important, and we can't put the flags out ourselves. So these partners are absolutely critical to us. So we appreciate all of you. At this time, would the cooks please come out from the kitchen? I warned them. Here they come. As you know, the cooks are, as far as I'm concerned, they're honor Rotarians. We are the only Rotary Club in Ohio that has their own cooks on payroll. And they cook better than anybody. And so Sarah and her entire crowd, I think, deserve a big round of applause.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
They hold a very, very special place in my heart. Thank you. We appreciate you every Monday. Well, welcome to all of our guests, and we've got a lot of them here today. Tate, John, Rob, Jim, and Dave, to name a few, plus all our partners. We'd really appreciate it if you'd consider joining. We do have plenty of applications if you're interested. We hope you enjoy the program today, and our program will be introduced by Doug Drusa.
Thank you, President Gray. Most of you, I'm sure, have attended athletic events and cheered on the players or wondered why the coach was doing such stupid things, or maybe even yelled at officials for obviously not understanding the game as well as you do. But you've probably not paid much attention to the other person, typically sitting along the sideline, and that's the athletic trainer. Here today to tell us about that job is my friend Nate Houston, who's the head athletic trainer at the College of Wooster. Nate is entering his 12th year at the college and his 4th as the head trainer. Nate's primary sports include football, men's lacrosse, and swimming and diving, but he helps oversee all 23 varsity sports at the college. Nate came to the college from Syracuse University, where he worked as a graduate assistant athletic trainer with the Oranges football and nationally prominent men's lacrosse teams. Prior to Syracuse, Houston was a student athletic trainer at the University of Mount Union. He holds a master's degree in exercise science from Syracuse and his bachelor's degree in athletic training from Mount Union. Nate and his wife, Michaela, reside in Worcester. While we've been friends pretty much since he arrived in Worcester, I must say I'm a bit nervous about this presentation, hoping that Nate is forgiving of all the times I flagrantly fouled him on the basketball court, and hoping that he instead remembers all the uncontested layups that I've allowed him. Actually, he's just so much faster that they seem uncontested. In any event, please welcome Nate Houston.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Doug. Doug asked me to come talk and talk a little bit about athletic training. And so I have a little bit of a presentation here, not too many slides, and I was given orders that we had to make sure we were out of here by 1 o'clock. So make sure we keep to that. But so athletic training, we can talk about that. And then if there's questions at the end or anything to do with the college athletic programs or whatever, happy to try to help answer those questions if you have them as well. So what is an athletic trainer? What do they do? Let's see if I can figure out how to advance this. I tried that. There we go. So athletic trainers a lot of times have unknown roles. People see us as people who give the water and think that's the bulk of it, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. Athletic trainers are healthcare professionals. We collaborate with doctors, physical therapists, surgeons, lots of other different groups within the healthcare sports medicine umbrella, trying to make sure we're keeping the athletes as safe as possible. So we help with injury prevention, emergency care and planning, clinical diagnosis, rehabilitation of injuries, medical conditions, different things like that. So what does it take to be an athletic trainer? When I went to school, all you had to do was, not I say all you had to do, but you had to go through an accredited undergraduate program, and then you could sit for your certification exam. Now that's changed. So now it's a required master's before you can get into it. So I was fortunate that I went through undergrad and then went to graduate school and got some experience and got my master's degree paid for. Now, unfortunately, people are gonna have to pay for that, but that's gonna hopefully help the profession and help people understand what it is and get more education so they can provide the care. So master's degree is required, then you can sit for your board of certification exam and then can get licensed or certified in your state. Every state has a different requirement, whether it be licensure or registration, or some don't have any actually. So what do we do all day? We talked about doing or taking care of injuries, but what do we do day-to-day operations? So practice and game coverage is a big part of it. Obviously, emergency management, trying to care for that, make sure we're prepared if something were to happen, ensure their safe participation and traveling with the team. So if the team's traveling to an overnight trip or whatever, a lot of times we're going along with them, being there for those games in case something were to happen. Meeting with the coaches on a regular basis, meeting with strength coaches, physical therapists, whoever it may be, to make sure we're making the right plans on people returning back to participation, maybe adjusting the practice plan because we're going to be short on quarterbacks that day or whatever it may be. So working with the coaches and collaborating and making a plan again to try to make sure all the student athletes are safe and healthy. At least that's in my setting. There's a lot of different settings athletic trainers can work, which we'll get to in a second. But that's kind of the first thing that people think of for the most part. So when the injuries do happen, obviously there are going to be some injuries. You can't prevent everything, whether that be in noon hoops or when Doug hits you in the back of the head or whatever else, or in the practice or in the weight room. So evaluating injuries, trying to determine what's the best course of action, what could be wrong, how do you manage it, whether that be ice or heat or tape or brace or whatever it may be, treatment and rehabilitation. Sometimes we can handle the rehab through the athletic training room. Other times we might refer out to a physical therapy group to help with those progressions depending on the type of care that the athletes may need. When there's not injuries, obviously there's going to be, but throughout the day when the athletes are in class or whatever, what else do we have to do? Administrative responsibilities are a big part of my position, especially as the head athletic trainer at the college. Making sure we're following policies and procedures that the NCAA puts out in place to keep everybody safe. So making sure we have written policies for concussions and sickle cell trait and emergency situations like the picture here where someone may have a spinal cord injury. How do we manage those? How do we practice those things with local EMS or whatever? How do we rehearse those protocols so that we can be prepared when they come up? Other administrative things such as making referrals. Again, I mentioned that earlier, whether that be out to physical therapy or to physicians or mental health counselors or whoever else that may be, making those referrals. And then a lot of athletic trainers serve in an administrative capacity, at least in the college setting, on the college's leadership team or administrative team, helping have that voice. Athletic trainers have a kind of unique setting in that we're kind of neutral to everything. We aren't biased towards one sport specifically. So we have a neutral voice from the athletic department to hear what the athletes have to say, to see what the coaches have to say. And then we can filter some of those things and take them to the coaches. I do that all the time where someone may be complaining about this or that. And so you take it, filter it a little bit, and then give it to the coach and say, hey, here's what I'm hearing from the players. You know, they're tired from this, or they hate this part of practice or whatever. So we can continue to be that kind of neutral voice there to help out with those things and help make the athletic department move forward and hopefully keep having success. Education is a key part. Obviously, I talked about what you have to do to get into it. With any medical professional, you have to do continuing education, continuing to learn every day, whether that be from other students, doing continuing education courses, going to lectures, presentations, gaining some different skills like that. Teaching in the college setting, a lot of athletic trainers teach, same thing in high schools. So that continues to keep you sharp and education that way, and working with the students from a different area there. And then working with the community. This past year, we were able to work with the local EMS and campus security and all our coaches, and to collaborate and rehearse our emergency action plan on what we would do if something were to happen on the field. How do we manage it? Where does the ambulance come into? How do we make this go as smoothly as possible to make this kid that is having the worst day of their life, make it as manageable as possible, where the parents aren't concerned and the fans aren't concerned and the game's not being held up for 4 hours. So how do we work through that? So we were able to work with local EMS and talk about helmet removal for football and lacrosse, talk about spine boarding for back or neck injuries, and how do we go through that. So working all together with everybody, again, working as a community, working as a member of that sports medicine team with everybody in the community that can help out with that. So where can athletic trainers work, and what else can we do? So again, in the college setting, obviously it's the simple, easy one for me. That's where I'm at. Obviously there's athletic trainers in high schools, professional sports. Athletic training has emerged into some other industrial type settings, performing arts. I know people that work at Amazon, helping to prevent injuries or to help manage those when they happen. Obviously in a physical therapy office, doctor's office is physician extenders. Sometimes athletic trainers can do those things. So it's not always going to be with athletics, but helping out with other things too, helping give advice to friends and family when they get hurt and aren't sure how to treat their back injury or their Achilles injury, or what do we do with that? That always seems to be a hot thing, especially at holiday time. You know, I've had this injury. It's been going on for 3 weeks. What should I do? Should I go see somebody? Should I do this? What should I do with that? So that's always an interesting thing there, but lots of different settings that athletic trainers can work into. It's not just that traditional setting where people think of it with athletics and doing the different things. Anywhere where people are physically active and have those injuries, obviously there's a need there. So that's kind of all I had prepared. Happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything on what we're doing, things that I've seen. Lots of different injuries people generally ask. Kind of what's the worst injury that you've dealt with, or what's the most exciting injury, if there is such a thing. But probably just for reference, the most frustrating injuries for me as an athletic trainer are not the orthopedic issues, but the more extensive ones, whether that be concussions, which are frustrating to deal with because obviously it's their brain and you can't just replace a brain. You can fix a knee, you can rehab an ankle. There's only so much you can do with your brain. So you got to make sure you're treating things right. So those are frustrating because there's no way to know for sure whether it's healed or not, or whether they have a concussion or whether they just have a headache or things like that. But those types of things with that and heat issues and those types of medical emergencies are the biggest concerning and frustrating or scary part, I guess. But again, just trying to manage that through the emergency action plan and planning ahead of time. Hopefully we can minimize some of those things.
I have a question.
Yep.
My question is, who makes the final call on a player, on whether he plays or not? We saw Baker Mayfield last year kept overriding the coaches and going in the game, and it almost cost him his career. What do you think of that whole thing?
That's a tricky subject, especially in the professional ranks, where you know they only have so many times they can make money. In our setting, ultimately the team physician has final say. The NCAA put something into place 2-3 years ago, I think, that says the athletic trainer has unchallengeable right to make those decisions, so that the coaches can't just say, hey, they just got their bell rung, put them back in. The coaches have to listen to the athletic trainers and the positions. So ultimately, that's where it should fall. But obviously, that's a tricky subject, especially in the NFL type of thing. You see, they have the spotters in the box that they're supposed to be looking for suspicious actions and things like that to be able to pull somebody. But that's a really tricky area in that level where there's so much money on the line, which is a big reason why I want nothing to do with working at that level.
Thanks for coming today. What are the current concussion protocols and are they age related or age specific?
There's not really any difference from an age standpoint. Personally, I'd probably be more cautious with someone who's much younger, just because their brain's still developing and you need to be very cautious with that. At my level, in the college level, yeah, they're still developing some, but not quite as much as say a 13, 14-year-old. Those ones I would say need to be really careful and gradually work back in. But as far as the protocol goes, if you get a concussion, you have a head injury, get hit and have symptoms, you should be removed from play for at least that day until you can follow up. The state of Ohio has rules for the high school level and younger that you have to be evaluated by some sort of medical professional. I don't know if that's just doctors, or I think chiropractors can do that and some different levels, but something above me from the high school standpoint to clear them ultimately. And then you want to gradually progress back to make sure that you don't get symptoms back when you start exerting yourself. You want to wait till symptoms are resolved and then gradually working back in. So you see some of those, and again, the NFL is the easiest one to reference because it gets all the publicity. Someone's in concussion protocol. Generally, that means they're still having some sort of symptoms, whether that be headaches, nausea, sensitivity to light, dizziness, trouble with balance, remembering, whatever it may be. And then they should progress back through working in a non-contact setting and then working through those, exerting yourself a little bit more extensively until you can get back to full play.
So it was interesting to hear that licensing is on a state by state basis. How does that affect your team if you're traveling out of state and dealing with your own player?
If you're dealing with your own team, it's generally not an issue. There are some conflicts because our conference does travel to Indiana, not to Pennsylvania quite as much anymore now that Allegheny's not in the conference. But as long as we're caring for our student athletes, our team physician signs off that says we can treat our varsity athletes as we need to. So from that standpoint, it's okay. But that is a little bit of a gray area that has gone different places. In Michigan, for instance, they had a couple years ago, they had some funky legislation that we could travel, but we weren't allowed to do much unless their athletic trainer said we could. That's mostly gone away now, so we can care for our athletes, even if we're in a different state.
Is there any thought about doing a national licensure?
There should be, but no, I don't think so. I think pretty much everyone has licensure now. I think California was one of the last holdouts, but I think everyone has some sort of licensure or registration at this point.
As we continue to see growth in youth sports participation, more training, and even more sports specific for an individual child, are you seeing things at the college level that are proportionate to the number of additional training days and competitions that students are picking up when they're young?
Yes and no. I think it depends on the individual. By the time they get to the college level, they generally have a pretty good training program. Most of them, depending on where they're coming from, what they had access to, wherever they came from, to where they know what they should and shouldn't be doing. And some of them have such regimented plans that they kind of do their own thing as far as training and don't necessarily utilize our services, or it takes a little bit of time to convince them otherwise. And other times, yeah, you'll see some of those overuse things that are a lot worse now than they used to be, because baseball's the biggest example of this, with elbows specifically. When they're younger and they're pitching and throwing all the time, a lot of times you see a lot more elbow and shoulder issues now than you did when people were playing more and more sports, in my opinion.
Are rules like prohibition of targeting in football helping to alleviate injuries?
Yeah, they're helping to alleviate some of those catastrophic, I guess catastrophic is probably not the right term, but the more significant serious injuries, because people are less likely to use their head because they don't want to get thrown out. It's unfortunately not because they don't want to cause injury, it's because they don't want to get thrown out of the game. So yeah, I think there's less of those, but there's still so much you're going to have. You're still going to have the concussions, you're still going to have those injuries, because a big reason is because the athletes are training so much more, and like we just talked about, training year round, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, so that's just more force coming into everybody every time, whether that be football is the example there. You know, you got a bigger force coming at you, there's going to have to be some sort of take from that. So you're definitely still going to have those injuries, but it has helped eliminate some of those more egregious plays for sure.
Hi, thanks for coming. I was wondering if you guys are doing much preventative programming as far as training is concerned. You know, I feel like athletic trainers when I was in college spent most of their time taping already injured things, icing already injured things, dealing with, you know, already injured players, as opposed to working with coaches on, you know, programming that was targeting injuries that typically occur in any given sport. Is that something that you're able to spend time on, or not really?
A little bit, but not a lot, because of what you just said. I mean, the college, we only have there's three of us total athletic trainers for 600-ish student athletes. So we don't have a lot of time to spend on specifically with those things. Thankfully, we do have a strength coach now that we've hired, so they can work with some of those weaknesses that may be seen and help prevent some of those. But yeah, we work with them some and say, hey, here's what we're seeing, maybe we need to adjust this or adjust that. But as far as structuring specific programs from us, no, we don't really have time to do that at this point. I'd love to, but we just don't have the staffing to do it.
Just curious, what other physical regimens have you seen work their way into training some of these athletes, football players, basketball players, lacrosse players? So are you seeing a lot more stretching, for example, before they go out and start running? Are you seeing players taking yoga classes or things like that? I'm just kind of.
There are definitely some of those. Some of the yoga classes are getting more popular because people are seeing the benefits of it. But there's probably less standing and stretching than there used to be. The static stretching is not nearly as popular anymore. There's actually some proof that shows static stretching before activity can decrease your explosiveness and power. So generally they are avoiding that, and they're just doing more active warm-ups, karaoke, high A jumps, different things like that to warm up, and doing some targeted stretching for maybe someone who has an injury or something is probably more the trend there. But there are definitely some programs at the college specifically that go through a yoga session. You know, this is our recovery day, we're going to go do yoga, we're going to do this functional movement stretching exercises just as an off day thing, but not so much as a warm-up for sport.
You know, Phil's question has to do with what we were discussing back here. I just kind of wonder, you look at high school, you look at the small college level and beyond, it seems like there's at the high school level, you have athletic training, but you don't have a strength and conditioning coach. And you get into college and you have that, but maybe you can shed some light on this. Small college level, there may be a dual capacity there where there's strength conditioning and training happening from the same folks. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, that's a possibility. And there are some places that have had a dual credentialed strength conditioning coach and athletic trainer. But again, depending on the staff size you have, that's going to be challenging to be able to do both of those things at once. Because again, if you have 600 student athletes that you're trying to create a strength program for, and then try to help them rehab their injuries, there's just not enough hours in the day. But there are, especially at the small college, this is our first year we actually had a strength and conditioning coach at the college. So we're starting to see some benefits from there. But before that, it was coaches who were maybe credentialed, maybe weren't, maybe had some experience in it that were running them, maybe with a little bit of input from the athletic trainers. But it just depends on the situation. Like I said, there used to be some schools in our conference that had their fifth or sixth athletic trainer was also a strength and conditioning coach, but you just had to find the numbers.
You mentioned each trainer is responsible for their own team. So what happens when the referee gets sick? Just let him lay there?
Definitely have helped a few referees before, whether that be at a game or pre-game. Have had people that have gone down. Definitely just whoever's closest kind of takes care of them at that point, whichever sideline they're on.
What is the worst injury you've ever seen?
The worst injury, aside from those medical emergency type situations I mentioned, probably had a knee injury when I was in grad school, that the kid got hit from the side and his knee basically folded sideways instead of backwards, to the point where he tore his ACL, MCL, meniscus, peroneal nerve, and actually never regained function of his foot. He wasn't able to pull his toes up towards him anymore because that nerve was so damaged. So that's probably the worst one from a long-term type of experience goes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All I can say is it sure has changed a lot since I played football in high school. You could crawl off the field, you had to go back. There was no protocols, nothing. It's obvious today we had concussions every week. Okay, all you have to do is talk to some of us. In appreciation for your time with us today, we'd like to present you a rendition of the rotary wheel with the 4-way test on the back. It's made by students at the village level. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. As a reminder, we do not meet for the next 2 Mondays. Our next meeting will be Monday, January 9th, when our program will be O Huddle. And it'll be O Huddle's impact on Wayne County youth with Sarah as our speaker. We also we won't have a new member induction now. We were going to, but we'll move that back. So I wish you all a Merry Christmas, happy and a safe New Year, and we will see you on the 9th. We stand adjourned. Thank you.